You look so thin in that dress. Are you okay? My Aunt Patricia said. I watched my mother's face tighten in that way it does when she's performing concern while silently keeping score. We were at my cousin Diane's bridal shower and I had just arrived straight from closing a major real estate deal. A milestone I'd mentioned to my mother only once, casually, the week before. I laughed because I didn't know what else to do. I'm healthy, Aunt Patricia. Thanks for noticing. I'm just saying you're looking a little gaunt. Maybe all that work stress. She said it sweetly, the way women learn to weaponize concern, turning observation into judgment while maintaining the plausible deniability of kindness. What I didn't realize in that moment was that this compliment wrapped in criticism was actually a perfect summary of my relationship with every female relative I had. My mother, my aunts, my cousins. A system of competition disguised as love. The realization didn't come all at once. Came slowly, layering like sediment, pressure building until it could no longer be ignored. I grew up with 5 female cousins. We were close. The kind of close where summers were shared, secrets whispered, and promises made about always being there for each other. I loved them. I truly believe they loved me too. But for most of my life I didn't realize that what I thought was love was actually something more complicated. A game where we were taught to compete for limited resources. Approval, attention, validation, while pretending we were supporting each other. My first job out of college paid $55,000 a year. My cousin Melissa called the day she heard. "Oh my God, $55,000? She said, and I heard that exact note in her voice. "That's so cute." I started at $65,000, but I know not everyone's comfortable in high-pressure environments. This will be great for you as a stepping stone. I was happy with my job. I loved what I was doing. But after that conversation I felt small, as if I'd settled without knowing it. Melissa had made me question my own satisfaction by inserting the idea of a hierarchy where I was, once again, a few rungs lower. 2 years later, when I got my first promotion, I called my mother to tell her. Her response: "That's wonderful, sweetheart. Melissa made director at the same age, but every path is different." I hadn't asked about Melissa. I hadn't invited comparison. But it came anyway, automatic as breathing, a reflex so ingrained my mother probably didn't even realize she was doing it. Over the next decade the pattern repeated endlessly. When I bought a house, my aunt asked why I hadn't picked a better neighborhood. When I got engaged, a cousin asked if I was worried about being too ambitious for my fiancé. When I had my first child, my mother suggested I consider part-time work so I wasn't neglecting my family. A suggestion never made to my brothers or any of the men in our family. But the most insidious part wasn't the criticism. It was the packaging, wrapped in concern, in advice, in ostensible support. Every critique arrived with a preface. "I just want you to be happy. I'm only saying this because I care. I don't want you to make the mistakes I made." My aunt would say, "Your career looks so demanding. Don't you worry, you're missing out on what really matters." Which really meant, "Your choices make me uncomfortable about mine." My mother would say, "You're working so hard. I hope you're not pushing yourself too much." Which really meant, "Your success makes me anxious and I'm disguising that as concern." My cousins would say, "You must be so exhausted managing everything." Which really meant, "I'm envious so I'm recasting your accomplishments as burdens to feel better about myself." It took me until I was 32 to realize I'd spent my entire adult life seeking approval from women who could never give it, because their love was conditional. Conditional on me being successful enough to make them proud, but never so successful that I made them feel inadequate. I had been playing a game with invisible rules. Win too much and you're intimidating. Accomplish too much and you're selfish. Advance too far and you're abandoning your family. But accomplish too little and you're a disappointment. There was no winning. The game was designed that way. I remember the exact moment I stopped playing. We were at a family dinner and my cousin Diane, who'd married at 24, had 3 children by 28, and had devoted herself to being the perfect homemaker, leaned toward me and said, Story continues. "My daughter-in-law asked me when I was planning to have more children. We're thinking 2 total, I said. We're happy with 1 for now. Oh, you'll change your mind, my mother replied, nodding with certainty. You don't know what you're missing. I'm not missing anything, I said quietly. I'm making a choice that works for my life. But it's not ideal, my aunt added. And I heard the unspoken ending to her sentence. And also, You're selfish for prioritizing your career over motherhood. Something in me just broke. Not in an angry way, in a clarity way, like a light turning on in a room I'd been fumbling through for 30 years. I need to tell you all something, I said, setting down my fork. I'm done. I'm done seeking your approval. I'm done shrinking my accomplishments so they don't threaten you. I'm done listening to compliments wrapped in insults. I'm done with the implication that there's something wrong with my choices simply because they don't match yours. Alexandra, that's not fair, my mother protested. We love you. I know you love me, I said, cutting her off. But love isn't supposed to come with conditions. Love isn't supposed to require me to shrink myself. And what I'm realizing is that you're all competing with me, not cheering me on. I can't participate in competition where the rules are designed so I always lose. The table went quiet. I'm going to keep advancing in my career. I'm going to keep making decisions that work for my life, not for your comfort. I'm going to have one child, or maybe two, or maybe none. Whatever feels right to me. I'm going to live authentically, and I'm done apologizing for my success. We never asked you to apologize, Diane said. You didn't have to ask, I replied. You made it clear through 1,000 tiny comments, 1,000,000 microjudgments, an endless stream of conditional support. You taught me that love had to be earned by staying smaller than you. And I'm not going to do that anymore. I left that dinner early. I braced for fallout. I expected my mother to call crying, my aunts to regroup and analyze what was wrong with me. Some of that happened, yes. But something else happened too. I felt free. In the months that followed, I made a deliberate choice. I stopped volunteering my accomplishments to my female relatives. I stopped seeking their validation. I stopped softening my success so they wouldn't feel uncomfortable. And something unexpected occurred. They started treating me differently. When I wasn't asking for their approval, the dynamic shifted. Without me feeding the competition suddenly felt pointless. My mother still makes the occasional comment, but now I don't absorb it as truth about myself. I see it for what it is. Her own anxiety, her own limitations, her own unfulfilled dreams projected onto me. I can acknowledge that compassionately without internalizing it. 6 months after that dinner, my cousin Melissa actually apologized. She said she'd been jealous of my career trajectory and had masked it as concern. I was competing with you, she admitted. And I was disguising it as love. I didn't even realize I was doing it until you called it out. I appreciated the apology, truly. But I also realized I didn't need it. I had already released her from the power to hurt me with her jealousy. I had already forgiven her for playing a game we were all trained to play. My forgiveness came before her apology, which meant it wasn't dependent on her acknowledging her behavior. Here's what changed. I stopped needing my female relatives to validate my choices. I stopped seeking approval for the way I lived my life. I stopped shrinking myself to make them comfortable. And in doing that, I accidentally discovered something profound. The love that remained, after I stopped performing for it, was real. It didn't come with backhanded compliments or veiled criticism. It didn't demand that I diminish myself. It simply existed. Quiet, steady, unconditional. My mother still visits. Our conversations are better now because I'm no longer constantly defending my choices. My cousins are still in my life, but from a healthier distance. A place where I'm no longer competing for limited scraps of approval. And I realized something that changed everything. I wasn't broken for needing validation from women who were never going to give it. They were broken for teaching me that love depended on being smaller than them. Once I understood that, I could forgive both them and myself. And begin rebuilding relationships based on honesty instead of competition. The problem was never that I couldn't win. The truth was simpler and far more liberating. I finally stopped playing the game.